My name is Julian Carruthers. I am Deputy Long-Range Planning Executive of Universal International. We have companies all over the world. We turn over 700,000 million pounds a year. Or is it 700 million pounds? Or dollars? Anyway, something like that.
I'm Rita Scroggs of Scroggs Manufacturing. I have a wooden shed in Brixton. Last year I turned over £31,427.53.
I work on the 51st floor of Universal House, and I am widely respected throughout the corporation.
I work in a corner of the shed, and my team think I'm a bitch.
I am a highly sophisticated manager. I know all about TQM, Theory X and Theory Y, hygiene factors, management matrices, and of course, the hierarchy of needs. The only thing I do not understand is finance.
I am a highly unsophisticated manager. I don't know what the hell he was talking about, but I watch the figures like a hawk.
My colleagues are highly sophisticated managers too. They do not understand finance either. All of us feel slightly uneasy about admitting it, so we have a gentleman's agreement not to refer to it. We leave the financial arrangements to the accounting people, just as we leave the catering arrangements to the canteen people. We believe in trusting people.
I don't trust anybody. But then, fortunately, I'm not a gentleman. I cut my own sandwiches and I do my own accounts.
I would lose face if I admitted to anyone in the corporation that I do not understand finance, since I am constantly approving financial statements, draft accounts, and balance sheets.
If I didn't understand finance, I would not lose face, but I would lose all my money.
I have come to this person for help because she is so basic and unspoiled that she will use short, simple words that I can understand, and not the obscure mumbo-jumbo that accountants try to frighten you with.
Because I am so basic and unspoiled, I'm very flattered by his attention. But just what is it he doesn't understand?
Well, I understand a great deal about management, but pitifully little about how business actually works.
Right. Later on, I'll tell him about working capital, P&L accounts, and cash flow forecasts. But we'll start by looking at a balance sheet. It is the window which reveals the business.
It is not the window which reveals the business. It is the blind drawn by accountants to keep us managers in the dark.
Then, for the time being, we'll forget about the balance sheet. We'll just talk about money. In business, money only does two things. It comes in and it goes out. There are two basic things you have to know. Where did it come in from and where did it go out to? All right?
Yes, I understand that.
Good. So, let's begin with where it comes from. Say you're starting a business. There's only two places you can get money from. The first is by risking your own and perhaps get the people to share the risk with you. That money is called share capital, or the equity, and the shareholders are the owners of the business and share all its profits, or lose all their money. The second way to get money is to borrow it on a long-term basis and pay interest. That's called loan capital.
Light is beginning to dawn. There are only two places money can come from: share capital and loan capital. The owner's money and the money that they borrow from somebody else.
You've got it. Now that you've raised the money, where are you going to put it?
I am going to put it into
the
business.
I see. And what part of the business?
Into the part of the business that you tell me to.
Right. Well, just as there are only two places money can come in from, there are only two places money can go out to. first, you can put it into things you mean to keep. Buildings, machinery, cars, furniture. All those are called fixed assets. And second, you can put it into things you mean to sell. Raw materials, piece parts, packaging materials, and so on. That money is called working capital.
Ah, I've heard of that.
So, there is the basis of every business. The two places money can come from: share capital, risking your own, and loan capital, borrowing someone else's. And the two places it can go to: fixed assets, things you mean to keep, and working capital, things you mean to sell.
I now know, which I knew all along but did not know that I knew, that a business is based on cash and that you start by saying where you got it and what you did with it. I now understand how a business works.
He does not understand how a business works because he does not understand working capital.
I cannot imagine why she thinks I do not understand working capital.
Then let us ask him 3 questions. Does the rent of the factory come out of working capital?
Mm-hmm.
Does bank interest come out of working capital?
Mm-hmm.
Do wages come out of working capital?
Mm-hmm. Well, I can now understand why she thinks I do not understand working capital.
Do you want a lot of money in working capital or a little?
All capital is good, so I want a lot.
Mm-hmm. You want as little money as possible tied up in working capital.
I've changed my mind. As little as possible. Quite, yes. Yes, I see that. No, I don't. I do not understand working capital. Not at all.
Right. Look at this. All businesses are the same. You put money in and you get money out. Sometimes you get less money out than you put in. Then you go bust. Sometimes you get more money out. Then you're in business. Is that clear?
Yes. Yes, I'm not stupid, you know.
Oh, good. Now we know about the fixed assets, the things you mean to keep. They're obvious, but they can't make money on their own. To make money, you need working capital. You need it to buy raw materials, and you need it to pay the workforce to turn the raw materials into something you can sell at a profit. You need it to pay the overheads, administrative staff, electricity, rates, insurance, postage, telephone, and all that. Not to mention the interest on the money you borrowed. Then you can start to make money.
How?
Well, look at Scroggs Manufacturing. I make teaspoons. All I do is spend 60 on 10 kilos of light alloy strip on Monday, change its shape, and sell it for 300 on Friday. I buy another 10 kilos of light alloy strip, I pay the workforce, I pay the overheads, and I put a bit aside. And I keep a bit for myself, right?
No, I'm not happy.
Why not?
It's so simple, I am getting suspicious.
Well, let's look a bit closer. Take that light alloy strip I buy on Monday for 60. On Tuesday, I pay Harry 20 for stamping it into blanks. Now I've got 80 invested in stamped blanks. On Wednesday, I pay Sharon 20 to press the blanks into spoons. Now I've got 100 invested in pressed spoons. On Thursday, I pay Bill 20 to pack the spoons and send them to the collection bay. Now I've got 120 invested in packed spoons. On Friday, I pay all the bills for the week's overheads. They come to 100. So now I've got 220 invested in a crate of teaspoons. That's 220 tied up in working capital. And on Friday afternoon, the customer collects the spoons and pays 300 for them. So I have recovered my investment of 220 in working capital and made 80 profit.
I see. It's really a sort of cash merry-go-round. You put in cash and get raw material. You put in more cash to get it stamped, pressed, and packed. You put in more cash to pay the overheads. Then you sell it and get your working capital back and a bit over. Then you start again. See, a cash merry-go-round.
For a sophisticated manager, that's quite a sensible statement.
Ah, I've got something right. I now understand working capital, sort of. I see that working capital is all the money tied up in things that you hope one day to sell to customers. What I cannot see is how she can live on 80 a week.
I cannot live on 80 a week.
I've got something else right.
I do not have to live on 80 a week.
Ah, she has a private income.
I do not have a private income. What has not struck him is that I have a 5-day week. I do not buy light alloy strip on Mondays only. I buy it every day. So, every day Harry stamps out 10 kilos of blanks. Every day Sharon presses 10 kilos of spoons. Every day Bill packs the spoons and takes them to the collection bay. Every day a customer collects the spoons and pays for them. It is a continuous process all through the year. So the cash merry-go-round goes on all the time. Because he is sophisticated, he will now be able to tell me how much I clear a week.
This is the sort of problem I'm good at, because I am sophisticated. She clears 80 a day, 5 days a week, so she clears 400 a week.
He may be sophisticated, but he's as thick as 2 short planks. He's walked right into my trap. Watch.
Ah.
Now, you say I clear 400 a week.
400 is correct.
OK. If I spend 60 a day on stripped metal, how much do I spend a week?
300.
If I pay Harry 20 a day for blanking, what do I pay him a week?
100.
And Sharon for pressing?
100.
And Bill for packing?
100.
And overheads?
100.
So, how much goes out every week?
700.
And if I collect 300 on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, how much do I collect a week?
5 times 300 is 1,500.
So, if I collect 1,500 a week and spend 700 a week, how much do I clear?
800. I have fallen into a trap. I said she cleared 400 a week, but she has proved she clears 800 a week. I do not see how she has done this. But I do see how she can live on 800 a week.
I have trapped him because he does not understand about overheads. I have to pay 100 a week overheads, whether I make 1 consignment of teaspoons or 5 consignments. He charged a week's overheads onto every day's consignment, so he put 4 times 100 too much on my costs. But I only pay a week's overheads once a week.
I have learned my lesson. I see that overheads don't multiply like materials and labor. She only pays her overheads once a week. So the more consignments she produces each week, the more profit she makes on each consignment, because they divide up the overhead into smaller portions. I now understand working capital.
Good. Now that he understands working capital, we can leave the balance sheet. I can now explain the profit and loss account to him.
Ah, that's a different thing, is it?
Yes.
Ah. This is going to be a different thing.
Yes, the profit...
This is rather exciting.
Profit
You know,
and...
I'm enjoying this more than I'd anticipated. I'd rather imagine.
Shut up now.
Certainly.
Thank you. Now, look at my profit and loss account for 1 week. Start with my income. I sold 5 lots of teaspoons at 300 a time. That brought in 1,500. Income, 1,500. Now look at my expenses. I bought 5 lots of strip metal at 60 a time, so 300 went out on materials. I paid Harry and Sharon 100 each, so 200 went out on manufacturing labour. I paid Bill 100, so 100 went out on distribution labour. I paid out 100 overhead, so I made a trading profit of 800 on the money-go-round. Then I got 20 on some cash I put on deposit and paid out 20 in interest on my loan capital. So I ended up with a net profit of 800.
Now I understand the profit and loss account. But what I do not understand is this. If she's making 800 a week profit, why is she not filthy rich?
He does not understand why I am not filthy rich because he does not understand what profit is.
I understand perfectly well what profit is. Profit is champagne and caviar and a decent tailor.
Profit is not champagne and caviar and a decent tailor. Profit is having a bigger business at the end of the year than you had at the beginning. Profit is what lets the business grow. Working capital makes the business go round, but it can't make it grow bigger. Not unless it makes profit first. Suppose I want to make my exports grow. I send catalogues to a lot of Europe's leading teaspoon buyers. I need extra money. Then suppose I get an export order every week. I have to produce an extra consignment, another 10 kilos of strip metal. I need extra money. Overtime for my people. I need extra money. Then I'll want a packing machine to help Bill cope with the extra volume. Extra money. There's no doubt about the best place to get extra money. Use the extra that came out of the working capital merry-go-round last year. And that extra is profit. Now, the first thing that happens to profit is the taxman takes his slice of corporation tax. Right? Then I and my fellow shareholders decide how much of what is left we want to put back into the business for next year's development and growth.
It's been a very good year.
Do you think? Yes. Okay. Okay. And the remainder, if any, we share out as dividends. It's for you. That one's for you. That one's for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
For me. And we can spend that on caviar and cigars and a bulging wardrobe of fabulous frocks if we want to.
Ah! I'd never thought of it like that.
Wait a moment. Remember the 2 places money came from? Our own money we risked and the money we borrowed?
Yes?
Well, once the business makes a profit, there's a 3rd place. The profit we put back into the business. It's called reserves.
Ah, yes. I understand reserves. And reserves are chests full of money stashed away in a bank vault.
Reserves are not stashed away in a bank vault, or not necessarily. They could be represented by machinery, or raw materials, or property.
Machinery? Machinery can't be reserves.
Yes, it can.
Well, she's using the word in a very silly and misleading way.
Yes, but that's the way it's used.
Oh, dear, oh, dear. Well, please explain reserves very slowly.
Right. Reserves is an entry in the in column. It merely states where the money came from. From money retained in the business, it does not state what the money has been used for, where it has gone to. Some of it can go to increase fixed assets, like the packing machine for Bill. And some of it can go into working capital, like the extra strip metal in the overtime for Harry and George. And some of it can be put by for a rainy day. You can invest it.
Or stash it in a bank vault.
If you're very sophisticated, yes.
Well, now, let's see if I've got this right. Once the business has got going, there's 3 places you can get money from. Your own, share capital, borrowing, loan capital, and retained profit, reserves. And then there's 3 places it can go to: fixed assets, working capital, that's the old merry-go-round, and investments.
He's got it. By George, I think he's got it. Yeah, that's quite enough of that, thank you.
Oh.
Now, at last, we can look at a real balance sheet.
Well, we can look at a balance sheet, but it will not get us very far because I do not understand that bit over there about current assets and current liabilities.
Well, I see his problem. That bit is simply a snapshot of the working capital at a single moment in time. The merry-go-round suddenly frozen. Look, if I stop the factory working, you can see that 60 of my working capital cash has been turned into strip metal. It's just as much of an asset as cash, but in a different form. So I have 60 of assets in raw material. Then I have stamped blanks, 10 kilos of strip metal with 20 of Harry's labour as well, 80, and pressed spoons, 10 kilos of strip metal with 20 of Harry's labour and 20 of Sharon's, 100. That's 180 of assets in work in progress. Then there's a case of spoons packed by Bill and taken to the collection bay. That's 60 of strip, another 60 for 3 people's work, 120, and the week's overhead of 100. That's 220 worth of assets in finished goods. Then there's 300 I'm owed for a consignment collected last week and 200 I put in the bank yesterday. So there's my current assets. Raw materials 60, work in progress 180, finished goods 220, debtors 300, cash at bank 200, that's 960. Take away the 2 bills I haven't paid yet for 60 and 100, my current liabilities, that's 160 I owe my creditors. So, my net working capital at this moment is current assets of 960, less current liabilities of 160. 800.
I see.
Phew. Now, we can look at the complete balance sheet again, and he will explain it to me.
I will now explain the balance sheet to her. Will I?
Yes.
Well, there are only 3 places money can come from. Share capital, which is put in by the shareholders on their own risk. Loan capital, which is money borrowed on a long-term basis. And reserves, which is profit, put back into the business. But the money's not there, it's in the business. Then there are only 3 places in business that money can go to. Fixed assets, which are things you mean to keep. Working capital, which are things you mean to sell. The money can be in raw material, work in progress, or finished goods, or in the bank, or people can owe it to you. And you subtract the money you owe other people. And investments, which are savings for a rainy day, or money put in someone else's business.
Very good.
I got it right. Well, I now understand how business works.
He does not understand how business works because there is one thing I still haven't told him. I will prove he doesn't understand by asking him whether he would accept this order.
Now this order is from Superior Snacketerias Limited. They want 5 shipments of teaspoons a week for 8 weeks from the 1st of April. Instead of the normal 300 per shipment, they will pay 400 to compensate for taking up the entire production capacity for the 8 weeks. Well, as a sophisticated manager, I can work this out. 100 a day is 500 extra a week. 500 extra a week for 8 weeks is
4,000.
4,000. That is an extra profit of 4,000. I would accept this order.
He hasn't read the last sentence.
The last sentence reads, payable in full by the 30th of September.
I will now introduce him to the last of the 3 crucial documents for understanding business finance. I've shown him the profit and loss account, which tells you what happened to your money in the past. That's your financial history book. I have shown him the balance sheet, which tells you where your money is at present. That's your financial snapshot, a picture of the business frozen at a single moment of time. I will now show him the document that tells you where your money will be going in the future. That's your financial crystal ball. It is called the cash flow forecast. But first, I must ask him some more questions. How much a week will it cost to make the spoons for Superior Snackaterias?
Well, I think I can answer that. 50 kilos of light alloy strip at 6 per kilo is 300. Next, 20 per day for each of the 3 people is 60 a day. That's 300 a week, making 600 so far. And 100 overhead makes 700. It will cost 700.
And how much will come in each week?
400 a shipment each day for 5 days is 2,000 a week.
But when will that 2,000 actually arrive?
Payable in full by September the 30th. It will arrive in 6 months' time.
So how do we pay the people, pay the bills, and buy the new lot of strip metal?
We have some money in the bank.
Yes, we have 2,000 in the bank.
Fine, we'll use that.
Very sophisticated. So, let us look at the cash flow forecast. We start week 1 with 2,000. How much comes in that week?
Nothing.
How much goes out?
700.
Which leaves?
1,300.
So we start week 2 with...
1,300.
How much cash comes in week 2?
Nothing.
How much goes out?
700.
Which leaves?
600.
So we start week 3 with 600.
600.
How much cash comes in week 3?
Nothing.
How much goes out?
700.
Which leaves?
There is no need to go on. I can see where all this is leading because I am a sophisticated manager.
All this is leading to a cash deficit after 8 weeks of 3,600. Which means bankruptcy as the consequence of accepting a profitable order.
I have changed my mind about accepting that order. My advice is that we should not accept it.
Perhaps we should not accept it. Perhaps we should negotiate weekly payments. Perhaps we should borrow some more working capital from the bank. But whatever we do, we start from a cash flow forecast. There's no perhaps about that.
I now understand business finance. Do I?
Yes.
Yes, I do. Apparently, it's all about money. Money goes into investments, savings for a rainy day. It goes into fixed assets, things you mean to keep. And it goes into working capital, things you mean to sell. Working capital starts with raw materials. It then goes into labor to produce the teaspoons, the goods. It goes into the overhead to pay the bills. Then it goes to the customer, who pays you more money than you put in. The money goes round again, and also you have some profit. Some of the profit goes in tax. Some goes into dividends, and the rest goes to making the business grow. I also understand that the more you produce each week, the more profit you make on each order, because you divide up the overhead into smaller portions. I even see that the less you produce each week, the less profit you make on each order, because it has to carry proportionately more of the overhead. I also understand the 3 crucial documents. The profit and loss account tells me what has happened to my money in the past. The balance sheet tells me where my money is now, and the cash flow forecast tells me where it will be coming from in the future. I am now ready to start my own business. You may be basic and unspoiled, but you have money. Will you come in with me?
I may be basic and unspoiled, but I'm not stark, staring sophisticated.